All right, everyone. So in the last video, last couple of videos, I should say, we talked about P5 HTML elements and using methods like the HTML or the add class or the ID or the parent to be able to manipulate an existing when you create an HTML element to be able to manipulate it and like add a class or something like that. Let's talk about this in relationship to some of the other elements we've talked about. So here I have the create P function, and it's going to make a paragraph, right? And notice that it's in the draw function and not the setup. Okay. So what's going to happen here? So I'm not having a canvas. This is going to make a P tag, right? I'm not going to write the whole thing, but just imagine that line is the P tag. And then it goes back and then it does it again. And then it goes and does it again. So in other words, what should happen here is, well, it's going to just keep making the P tag that it says this is a paragraph over and over and over and over again. Okay. In other words, it's going to keep going. So if I come into here, oops, let me refresh. See how it's keeps doing this just over and over. Okay. Because it's just going to keep doing it. Because the draw function just does it over and over. Okay. Um, you know, we can also use, I mentioned this before, but we can use like an if statement. I think in this one, we are gonna, I'm gonna put something in the draw function. So what's happening here is there's a variable we're creating called random number. And, well, okay, not that you have to do it, but I'm gonna put it here just to create, this is where we're gonna set up that variable. And I'm gonna say random number equals random between 1 to 10, right? You guys see that? And then what we're going to do is I'm going to say create P, and, the number is, and then let's do plus random number. All right. So before I do anything, let's do a little Blackboard coding here. We make a variable called random number. It's defaultly empty, doesn't have anything inside of it, right? Then here we set it to somewhere a random number between 0 and 10. And then we make a paragraph where we say the number is, and then whatever this value is should get substituted into there. So, let's just say the first number was 4. Then what's going to happen is, well, the draw function repeats. This number gets reset again. So it was 4, and then it gets, randomized again. Let's say this time it's 8. Create P, the number is 8. You repeat. Once again, this gets, randomized. So I don't know, 2, let's just say. Create P, the number is, and then 2. So on and so on and so on. Okay. So in other words, what should happen is it's kind of like the last one, except this time it's going to keep adding a random number. In this case, the numbers are going to have decimal points. Oops. Let me do that again. Let's refresh. All right, so you can see how the numbers are kind of all. If you want to have it not have a decimal place, there's a function called round that we could use. So I could do, there's 2 ways to do it. Let me show you something real quick. I could do this, random number equals round random number. Okay, so what does this mean? Well, let's just say that the number is, I don't know, 1.5. Okay. I'm not going to do, it does it to like 5 or 10 decimal places, but I'm too lazy for that. Okay. then what we're saying is, all right, the value of random number is equal to whatever the value of random number is now, put through the round function. What the round function does is it rounds it to the nearest number. So in this case, this would then become 2 because we're rounding this up. So now when I do this, that would round it out. There's actually a little bit of a shorthand that we could do. So what do I mean by that? Well, in the same way, like there's shorthand in English. So instead of cannot, there's can't, right? And instead of will not, we have a shortcut, which is won't, right? Okay. So we can do that too. So what I'm actually going to do is, instead of doing this whole extra line, I can actually do this. So those of you who might remember high school math, you might remember there's PEMDAS, right? Which is parentheses, ellipses, multiplication, division, PEMDAS. There it is. Sorry, PEMDAS, addition, subtraction. So what that means is things in parentheses go first. So the inner parenthesis is done, and then the outer parenthesis. So what's going to happen is, let's say it's, I don't know, 2.1. That's going to happen first. And then this second part will happen where it's rounded. And then, they round that to the nearest number, which will be 2. And then that should be substituted into there. So if I come and let's play around with this. Okay, you can see how I'm getting all these random numbers. And I can also use this in a if statement. So what I'm going to say is, if random number is greater than or equal to 5, I'm going to say create P number is greater than 5. If it's less than 5, I'm just going to use an else create P number is less than 5. Okay. So in other words, what I'm going to be doing here is getting a random number. We're evaluating it using an if statement. If it's above, if it's 5 or greater, we do this. If it's less than 5, so anywhere from 4.9 to negative infinity, it should do this. And all right, so you can see some are greater, some are less. All right. In the last couple examples here, we were using JavaScript to create the HTML on the fly. In other words, like there was nothing within the body tag, right? And then we, use some sort of function that created a P tag or an H1 tag or something like that. Sometimes though, what we're going to want to do is not create a new HTML element, but maybe use an existing HTML element and affect it. Okay, so here's what I mean. I have already in my body tag, I got a P tag, I got a paragraph tag, and another paragraph tag. Okay, and I want you to notice that each one has an ID applied to it. This says heading, this is paragraph, and then this has remove. Okay. And so these already appear in my browser, like such. So what I'm going to do is we can actually select we can have a variable like we've been doing before, and we can select an existing HTML element to put inside of that variable. Okay. So what do I mean by that? Well, I have a variable here called x. Okay. Let's just say for the sake of argument, I want x to be equal to this h1 element. how can we do that? Well, what I'm trying to essentially do here is select something. I'm trying to select one of the HTML elements, okay? And there's actually a function for that. And the function is called select. What select allows you to do is go through your HTML body section and look for something with a specific ID, okay? Notice how each of these has a CSS ID applied. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use heading, okay? And I don't think, I forget if I need to put the hashtag or not. I think I do. So I'm going to do heading. Okay. And just to show you that this works, let's do a little Blackboard coding here. I have a variable that I created called X. All right. It could be called literally anything. I just called it X because I'm lazy. And what I'm doing is I'm saying, okay, X is going to be equal to whatever the value of this is. Okay. So what happens is my computer, the program goes into the code and it's like, all right, we're looking for something with an ID of heading. Oh, here it is. Let's select this entire thing. Once again, it's like, it's going to give me the tag. It's going to give me the text. It's going to give me the width and height. All of that information gets put onto like a piece of paper like this. And it's going to be put inside of this here. Okay. So let's see if it does that. And that's what this is. So I'm going to save and refresh. And what happens is, well, I have a function and you can see how it has a width and a height. Okay. And I think it has all of these built-in information. See how it says like local name H1, all this other stuff. I'm not going to go through all of it. There's a lot, if I'm being honest. But, there's a lot going on here that we can play around with. But essentially, it's going to put that into X, right? The point of doing this is a lot of times what we want to do is once it's selected, then we can manipulate it. So remember, we used that HTML method before to change content of a HTML element. So now that this is an HTML element, I could say something like x.html. And then, I don't know, I'm going to change this from this is a heading to this is new text. Okay. I'm going to hit save and let's refresh. And then there you go. You can see how this has been changed because of that JavaScript. Okay. Let's maybe do that for the paragraph. I'm going to make another variable called y. Okay. Let y. And let's do y equals select. And this time I'm going to select the element, the HTML tag that has the ID of paragraph applied to it. Okay. Just to show that it worked. Print y. This should give me all the information related to that variable. And if I went inside of this, see how it says paragraph there? That will say p tag under ID and under code name, all that stuff. All right. I once again also want to change this. So let's say y.html equals it's a bright, shiny day. Okay. Let's save, and I'm going to go back. And there you go. Okay. And just for fun, we can even add some of those other HTML elements. So for instance, we could do y.add class. I don't have a class in this yet, but I'll make one. And I don't know, I'm just going to call it paragraph text. And let's make it red. And I'm going to say, okay, we are going to add paragraph text. Did I capitalize it? No, I did not. It's got to match. Hit. All right, I'm going to save that and let's go back. All right, so you can see how it added that class, which then made this text red. Okay. Maybe I might want to delete something. So there's actually a function. Eh, we'll do that in the next one, actually. All right, I'm going to go to exercise 10. So you can actually use it to remove. By the way, I'm going back here. You could also, instead of changing this via, the setup, I could make this a little more interesting. Maybe we're going to change the code based on, based on a mouse event. So I could say function mouse pressed. And this is where I'm going to change the text right here. So this occurs, when I press my mouse. So nothing happens, and then I click, and then it changes that. You can see how all of this was updated. Okay. I'm going to make, I'm going to do something where let's keep a counter. Let's put the number of times that we've clicked in some text that appears on the page. So I'm going to say, for instance, I have that X, which is going to give me this part. And let's make a counter, count equals 0. And every time you press, let's do count equals count plus 1. Okay. And what I'm going to do is, oops, I have an extra semicolon there. When we press the mouse, we're going to add 1, and then we're going to take this value and change the text to say how many times we've clicked. So x.html, you have clicked count times. So what's going to happen here is it's going to print you have clicked. It's going to substitute this number here and then add times. So you have clicked 1 time, you have clicked 2 times. Save. All right, so I'm getting a counter here that's updating. So you can see how this could be interesting, how you might want to use this for like a website where maybe it's like, okay, every time you click on a button, you want your cart, icon to change, right? How many things are in your cart or, something like that. You can also remove elements. So here I have 3 headings, 1, 2, and 3. Each has an ID of heading 1, heading 2, heading 3 applied to it. What I'm going to do is let's select the second one here. And let's just preview what this looks like. So heading 1, heading 2, heading 3. What I'm going to do is take the headline and let's select the second one by using the select function. All right, so I selected it, should be inside of the second one, should be inside of this. And then there's actually a function called remove, and what it will do is remove that element from your web page. All right, so headline.remove. This function will basically delete this element. So if I go back, you can see that that element no longer appears, right? You guys see how the H2 doesn't even exist now in my structure? Once again, it's like you could kind of play around with this and maybe attach this to like a keyboard and, some sort of event handler. So, okay, key pressed equals, let's do that here. So it's like, okay, what I'm saying here is when someone presses, that's when we're going to remove the item. So nothing happens. And then I hit a key on my keyboard and then that goes away. And if I wanted to be more specific, I could tell it to look for a specific, key, but you can see how we could really use this to kind of manipulate an HTML page to add content or subtract content. Okay.